Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thailand, or you can just call me Louis. I'm the lead hardware engineer here at Line, and today I will be talking about Line Things, connecting the unconnectable. Now, before we get started, just a quick show of hands. How many of you have heard of Line Things? Yeah? Wow, almost the whole hall. Well, you're in for a treat. I have something very exciting to share with you later on. So today's session will be divided into 3 parts. First, I will be talking about the history of Line Things. Next, I will share with you what you can do right now with Line Things through a developer trial. And lastly, a mysterious new feature you'll have to tune in till the end. So don't go anywhere. So, the history of Line Things. How did it come to be? About 4 to 5 years ago, in order for you to implement in an IoT product, you'll need to use messaging API, and you'll have to utilize push messages and reply messages for that to work. In fact, your implementation may look something similar to this. First, you have your IoT device, which is connected through Wi-Fi, which is then connected to the internet. And with that connection, it'll be able to connect to your server. Your server would then respond to webhook events from Line server. Now, suppose a user would like some kind of sensor data from the IoT device. What would they have to do? Well, they first need to send a text over to Line. That can be a special keyword. Say, I would like sensor data. That data, that keyword would then be sent over to Line's server, which is then forwarded to you, to your server, through messaging API. Lastly, your server would then take that message, process the message, and send the request over to your IoT device. Now, your IoT device would then take that information and the requests and send the data back over to your server. Your server would then forward that message over to Line, and then finally back to the user. As you can see, it's quite complicated, and there's quite a lot of latency between the user's request and the device's response. And so, we released Line Beacon. Now, what Line Beacon does is that it is a Bluetooth device that advertises its information so that any user who has their Bluetooth on can receive that information and send it through Line server, which your server can then receive that information. Now, Line Beacon allows the service provider to know the location of the user relative to the beacon. They can then take that information and then select a small group of users, say the users within this hall or the users outside. And they can provide specific information to those users. Now, with all these information gathered by the service provider, they can then use that to provide a more relevant and useful service for the users. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted something better. In fact, we wanted to make Line Beacon 2.0. Why not? But after we went through a lot of thinking process, we soon realized that Line Beacon was already great. It didn't need any improvements. So how do we make something that's already great better? We don't. So we went back to the drawing board. And we realized that we wanted 3 main core features. The very first one is a bidirectional communication, a way for the user to interact with the device so that they can send information over to the device as well as receive data from it. Next, we wanted to support almost all Bluetooth devices out there. Due to the huge uprising of Bluetooth devices currently, we wanted to make sure that our users don't have to buy specific hardware that will work with Line Things. And lastly, we wanted a seamless integration so that our users will have a great experience in our platform. And so with all these features, we decided to make an entirely new platform. It would become a universal platform for IoT devices. And so we called this new platform Line Things. Thank you. Now, you all might be wondering, just what is LineThings? Well, LineThings is an IoT platform within Line's ecosystem that's open to everyone. Anyone can use it. It is a bridge to connect users, devices, and services. And most of all, it's a universal hub for all IoT devices and services to live together all in one roof. So how does it work? Well, the device would first advertise itself so that a user can connect to it. Upon connecting to a device, the user is then able to interact with the device, either through messaging API or Lyft BLE. Now, in order for a device maker to be able to make a device to work with LineThings, it needs to follow one small specification. The device must advertise itself as a LineThings compatible product. With that data packet, Line will be able to scan for that device so that the user can connect to it. Now, I'm sure most of you haven't had a lot of experience developing for hardware. In fact, developing for hardware, In fact, developing for hardware can be quite troublesome. And so, we've made a great and easy-to-use UI for our users. For a user, all they would have to do is scan the QR code. From that QR code, they will be brought over to the device link screen. From there, they can select the device they want to pair with. After pairing with the product, they'll be able to use the product through Lyft application. Now, how does Lyft BLE work? So, for the most of you that are used to software engineering or have had experience programming Lyft before, Lyft BLE handles all of the hardware connection for you. In fact, it wraps all of the Bluetooth native components inside the operating system, inside your phone, so that you don't need to worry about a new Android device that just came out or Google leaving Huawei. So how would you implement Lyft BLE? After requiring Lyft.js, you normally would call Lyft.init. From there, all you have to do is just call Lyft.init plugins Bluetooth. And your Lyft application is now Bluetooth enabled. Here's a chunk of code that shows you all the functions you'll ever need for LineThings. Now, I know there's a lot of functions here, so let me walk this with you line by line. First is Lyft.Bluetooth.requestDevice. This allows a Lyft application to start scanning for available Bluetooth devices near you. Once found, you can call device.getConnect. This way, you'll be able to connect to the device. Now, in Bluetooth Low Energy, the Bluetooth stack looks something like this. There are several services within one stack, and from there, you can have multiple characteristics. Each characteristic can have a combination of 3 properties: read, write, and notify. And so in order for you to connect to one of those characteristics, you'll need to call get.getPrimaryService and specify the UUID that the characteristic is in. And since it's a characteristic under a service, you'll need to call service.getCharacteristic and enter in the UUID for that characteristic as well. Now, earlier I mentioned about the 3 properties: read, write, and notify. So just what are the differences between them? Well, for read, it's for Line application to request to a device for an information to be sent back. As for write, Line will be able to send its data over to the device to be written to. And lastly, notify is for the device to send an information back over to Line. And so you might wonder, how hard is it to implement these 3 properties? Well, after connecting to the characteristic, to read a value, you just call .readValue. It's that easy. Same goes for write. You just call characteristic.writeValue. It's fairly simple. Now, depending on the Bluetooth chip you use, you might need to format your data slightly differently. In this case, Mine is in UTF-8. And lastly, for you to be able to get notifications, you need to add an event listener with the event called characteristic value changed. From there, any kind of notifications you get from your Bluetooth device will be sent over to your LIF application. But please bear in mind the very last line right here, characteristic.start notifications. If you do not call this, you will not be able to get any notifications. Now, I'm sure you're very excited to get started with LineThings. And in fact, you can start playing with it right now. LineThings has opened a developer trial in which you can make your own product and start playing with it right away. Now, how many of you have created your own channel? Anyone? Yeah? Quite a few of you? Yeah, okay. So for those of you that haven't created your own channel, it's quite easy. All you need to do is go into developers.line.biz and create your own provider and your own channel. From there, you can get started on developing your LIF application. Once you've developed your LIF application, you'll need to make sure you've added it to your channel. Then you'll be ready to register your very first LineThings product. And from there on, you can make your very first LineThings compatible device. So how would you register your product? It's fairly simple. All you need to do is just call this API right here. I'd like to bring your attention over to name and LIF ID. The name specified here is the name of the product you want to be shown on the device link screen. The LIF ID specified here will be the LIF application that gets launched once the user has connected to the device. Upon registering the device, you'll be given a response back, something similar to this. Now, the key value that you need to take note of is the service UUID. This will be uniquely generated for you for your device, which you will need later on to develop your hardware device. Now, for the most of you who have not tried developing on hardware, we have a LineThings starter repository in which you can have a look over to get started on hardware development for LineThings. Let me show you what you can create. So here I have my phone. And this is my LineThings starter device. If I head on over to the LineThings screen, I'll be able to see available devices to connect to. In this case, it's the LineThings starter default firmware device. I'm going to start pairing with the device. And there we go. I'm connected. So I'm going to use this device now. By tapping Use Device Now, I'm going to launch up the LIF application, which then searches for available devices and will attempt to make a connection to that device. Once connected, it will read all the values within the device and display it right here. Now, as you can see, I have a button right over here that says Switch LED on. If I push this button, it will light up this LED right here, like so. In fact, if I tap it again, I can switch the LED off. So I can switch the LED on, switch the LED off. Now, there's also a second button here that says Released. However, it's not actually a button. As you can see, it's labeled Button State, and it identifies this button state right here. It is a physical button. So if I were to push on it, you'll see that the state is changed to pressed. If I let go, it's changed to release. Since the connection is done locally between the phone and the device, the response time is near real time. And that's what you can create with LineThings Starter. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Just what is this brand new feature? I'm actually quite honored to say that Thailand is the very first country to be announcing this great new feature. And we call that feature automatic communication. So, automatic communication will help developers create a seamless experience for users. It is completely intuitive because it enables offline devices to connect online through Line. And lastly, it is super simple to implement. Setting it up is as simple as 1, 2, 3. So how does it work? Well, when a user connects to a LineThings device, it will execute a scenario set. Once that scenario set has been executed, the results of that execution result will be sent over to your server as a webhook event. Now, you might be wondering, just what is a scenario set? So here's an example of a scenario set you'll need to use when you register. As you can see, there are a lot of variables that you might not have heard of. So let me go with you one by one. First is auto-close. Auto-close can be one of two values, true or false. If auto-close is set to true, once a scenario set has been executed, Line will disconnect with the hardware device. If it is set to false, Line will still maintain that connection even after the scenario set has been executed. Next is suppression interval. Suppression interval is always 0 if auto-close is set to false. Suppression interval is in units of milliseconds. If set, after Line has disconnected with a device, it will wait this amount of milliseconds before it attempts a reconnect. Next is scenarios. You can have multiple scenarios within a scenario set, but each scenario must have its own trigger. Now, there are two types of scenario triggers. The first is type immediate. When you connect to a device, it will immediately execute this scenario and then send the results over. The next type is called BLE notification, and it will only get executed when a Bluetooth notification has been sent. Now, in order for you to use BLE notification, you'll need to specify the service UUID as well as the characteristic UUID it's in. Lastly is actions. Actions is what you want Line to interact with the device. There are three things that you can do. First is GAT read, which lets you read data from the device. Next is GAT write, which lets you write data onto the device. And lastly is sleep, which lets you wait until the device is ready. After registering your scenario set, you'll be given this kind of webhook event when it is executed. As you can see, we have a brand new event type called type things. And with this new type of event comes with a new object, so-called things. Now from here, I want you to pay attention to BLE notification payload. If the trigger type is immediate, you will not have this. However, if the trigger type is BLE notification, you'll be able to receive the value sent through the BLE notification in base64 format. And lastly, if you have set any actions, such as read or write, those values will be displayed here. Now, I'm sure a lot of you may have heard this saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I can show you 1,000 words. I'm pretty sure you all won't get the full picture. So let me give you a demonstration. All right. Here I am on my phone again with a new device. I'm going to head on over to LineThings. And as you can see, I have a new hardware device here called Notify button. I'm going to connect to it. And once it's been connected, you'll see that I have received a message. That message reads, device connected. that means that I have connected with the device. This is from the scenario with the trigger type immediate. Now, I've taken the execution results of that and responded it with a message saying device connected. However, I also have another scenario of type BLE notification. If I push on the button right here, it sends a notification of how many times I've clicked this button. For this example, it's twice. If I click it again, it'll be 3, and so on, and so forth. Now, the beauty of this is that it works anywhere in line. In fact, it's so good, you don't even need line open. One moment. Seems like I'm not getting a good signal here. Okay, let me try this once more. Live demos, am I right? Right, in any case, automatic communication will work while line is either in the background or in the foreground. In fact, you can even have your device locked and still get notifications. Oh, sorry, I totally forgot. I brought my lucky cactus here with me today, and I was afraid my live demos would fail. I guess it's because I haven't been taking care of it quite well. Let me check on it real quick. Little cactus, where are you? There you are. Ah, I knew it. I haven't been taking good care of it. It seems really sad right now. In fact, it's only got 10 HP. Seems like it's a bit dark here. Let me see if I can do something to change that. That's better. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how automatic communication works. Now, LineThings has a Lift BLE ready for you to use through developer trial. And we're releasing a new feature today called automatic communication. With that, you'll be able to create truly amazing things that can talk to you, things that can communicate with you, things that don't even need to be online to work. And that is how you can connect the unconnectable. Now, before I leave, I'd like to talk about one last thing. And that is our hands-on events, as well as hackathons we'll be having this year. So if you have any interest in these events, please join our Line Developer Thailand group, as well as keep an eye for any announcements we'll be making for such events. And also, if you have interest in playing with LineThings, you can join us at the booth right outside. Thank you very much.